So, something pretty wild just happened in the AI world. A new model just showed up and is going toe-to-toe with the absolute best one out there. But it was built for a tiny, tiny fraction of the cost. So how in the world did they pull that off? Well, that's exactly what we're going to break down right now. The incredible story behind DeepSeek.
Okay, so first we really need to set the stage here, because the contrast it's just mind-blowing. I mean, we are talking about a classic David versus Goliath story, but for artificial intelligence.
So here's the headline, the really shocking part. This new challenger, DeepSeek's R1 model, is now on par with OpenAI's O1, the model that everyone thought was completely untouchable, the undisputed king of reasoning. And the crazy thing is, for all practical purposes, they are just as powerful.
But this is where it gets truly insane. Let's talk about the cost. OpenAI is estimated to have spent something like $500 million for a model like this. DeepSeek, they reportedly did it for less than $6 million. You know, that's not just a discount. That's playing a completely different sport. And this is why everyone is freaking out.
So the big question is, how? How did they possibly do this? To really get it, you have to understand this massive problem, this giant wall, really, that the entire AI industry has just slammed into. It all comes down to fuel.
And you know, this quote from Ilya Sutskever, OpenAI's former chief scientist, just nails it. For years, the game was simple. Want a smarter AI? Just shovel more data into it. Scrape the whole internet. Build bigger and bigger models. But there's a catch, a really big one.
And the catch is this. We've basically run out. We've read the internet. We've used up pretty much all the high-quality data that's out there. So that old playbook, it just doesn't work anymore. The industry is desperately looking for a new source of energy.
Okay, so if the old way is a dead end, what's next? This is where DeepSeek's idea is so brilliant and, frankly, a little radical. Their thinking was, hey, if we can't get more data from people, what if the AI could just make its own?
Their whole approach is built on this concept called reinforcement learning, or RL for short. Now, it sounds complicated, but the idea is actually super intuitive. Imagine you drop a little robot into a maze. You don't give it a map, no instructions. All you do is give it a reward, a little digital cookie, when it finds the exit. And just through trial and error, it eventually figures out the best path, all by itself.
And here's the genius of how DeepSeek used this. They realized that for stuff like math or writing code, you don't need a human to tell you if you're right. A computer can do it automatically. So they had their AI write some Python code to solve a problem. Then an automated judge would run a bunch of tests on that code. The reward? Simple. The more tests it passed, the bigger the reward. And the AI just learns from that feedback loop, getting a tiny bit smarter with every single attempt, over and over and over again.
And that right there is the huge breakthrough. It's not just technical, it's a whole new philosophy. They took the human bottleneck completely out of the equation. Forget paying an army of people to slowly create training data. They built a system where the AI generates its own, and it can do it endlessly.
And just look at the scale of this. They ended up with 800,000 top-notch training examples, all generated by their AI system. I mean, to get that many from human annotators, it would be basically impossible. Or at the very least, the cost would be absolutely astronomical. But here's the thing. This whole reinforcement learning process, it's notoriously expensive. It takes a ton of computing power. So this wasn't just about brute force. DeepSeek also had to come up with some really clever shortcuts to make this whole thing practical. So one of their key tricks is something called chain of thought. And the idea is actually kind of simple, but it's super powerful. You basically just tell the AI, hey, before you give me the answer, show me your work. Think it out loud, step by step. Forcing it to do that makes it build a logical case for its answer, which dramatically boosts the accuracy of the final result.
Okay, check out this next trick because it is so clever. Usually, to do this kind of training, you need two gigantic AI models running at the same time, which is a huge resource drain. But DeepSeek found a hack. Instead of training a whole second model, they just had their main model generate a few different answers and average the rewards. It's a simple little math trick, but it was good enough. And it saved them from having to train an additional 600 billion parameter model. That is a truly mind-boggling amount of computation saved.
So at this point, they've created this absolute monster of a model, 671 billion parameters. It's incredibly powerful, but also way too big for anyone to actually use. So how do you solve that? Well, the answer is this cool process called distillation. Think of it like a giant genius teacher model, creating the perfect study guide for a smaller, more efficient student model. So here's how that works. You take the massive R1 model, the teacher, and have it generate a huge amount of perfect, high-quality training data.
Then you take that perfect data and use it to train much smaller student models, models that are small enough for you or me to actually run on our own computers. And what you end up with is this whole family of really powerful AIs, all thanks to that original teacher.
So let's zoom out a bit. What does all this actually mean for the future of AI? Well, what we're looking at is a fundamental shift in how we're going to see progress from now on.
And this really sums it up perfectly. The old playbook was all about hoarding more and more data. That's the fossil fuel of AI. It's finite, and we're running out. The new playbook, the one DeepSeek is writing, is all about clever algorithms and raw computing power. And that is the green energy of AI. It's renewable, it's scalable, and it doesn't depend on us having to find another internet to scrape.
So when you boil it all down, what DeepSeek has really shown everyone is that the future of AI isn't just a race to build the biggest thing. It's about being smart. It's about being adaptable. It's about what you do when you hit that wall and have to find a totally new way forward.
And that leaves us with a pretty massive question, doesn't it? We now have an AI that can teach itself how to reason without us holding its hand every single step of the way. So, if an AI can teach itself how to reason, what happens next? Where does all this go from here?